5 most notorious criminals in London history. Number 1. Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper is one of the most infamous and mysterious criminals in history. Operating in the Whitechapel district of London during the late 19th century, specifically in 1888, Jack the Ripper is believed to have murdered at least 5 women, all of whom were prostitutes. The killings were particularly gruesome, involving mutilation of the victims' bodies, which suggested a deep understanding of human anatomy. Despite numerous investigations and widespread public interest, the true identity of Jack the Ripper was never discovered, leading to countless theories and speculation over the years. The name, Jack the Ripper, came from a letter sent to the police, allegedly by the killer himself, although its authenticity is debated. The case remains unsolved, making Jack the Ripper a chilling figure in criminal history and a symbol of fear in Victorian London. Number 2. The Richardson Gang. The Richardson Gang was a notorious criminal organization that operated in London during the 1950s and 1960s. Led by brothers Charlie and Eddie Richardson, the gang became infamous for their involvement in a wide range of criminal activities, including extortion, fraud, and violent enforcement. What set the Richardson Gang apart was their brutal methods of intimidation, particularly their use of torture on rivals and debtors. Victims were subjected to horrific acts, such as being electrocuted or having their teeth pulled out with pliers, earning the gang a fearsome reputation. The Richardson brothers were often compared to the Kray Twins, who ruled the East End of London, while the Richardsons controlled the South. The rivalry between the two gangs was intense, but the Richardson Gang was considered even more ruthless in its approach. Their reign came to a dramatic end in 1966, when several gang members, including Charlie Richardson, were arrested during a raid on their headquarters. The subsequent trial, known as the torture trial, led to lengthy prison sentences for many of the gang's key members, effectively dismantling the organization. The Richardson Gang's legacy remains a dark chapter in London's criminal history, symbolizing the brutal and violent underworld of the time. Number 3. Kray Twins. The Kray Twins, Ronnie and Reggie Kray, were the leaders of one of the most notorious criminal organizations in London's history during the 1950s and 1960s. The twins, known for their brutal and ruthless methods, ruled the East End of London with their gang, The Firm. The Krays were involved in a wide range of criminal activities, including armed robbery, arson, protection rackets, and murder. They were also known for their connections with celebrities and politicians, which allowed them to maintain a facade of respectability. Despite their efforts to appear as legitimate businessmen, the twins were feared for their violent enforcement tactic. Ronnie was known for his unpredictable and violent behavior, while Reggie was seen as the more calculating and business-minded of the two. Their reign of terror came to an end in 1968 when they were arrested and later convicted of murder. Both brothers were sentenced to life imprisonment, and their capture marked the decline of organized crime in London. The Kray Twins remain iconic figures in British criminal history, symbolizing the dark underbelly of London's post-war era. Number 4. Charles Darby Sabini. Charles Darby Sabini was a notorious crime boss in London during the early 20th century, leading the powerful Sabini Gang. Dominating the 1920s and 1930s, the Sabini Gang controlled illegal betting and protection racket, particularly within the horse racing world. Known for their violent enforcement methods, they were involved in bloody clashes with rival gangs and maintained influence through connections with corrupt police officers and politicians. Sabini, of Italian descent, used his charisma and connections to build a criminal empire across London. However, by the late 1930s, the gang's power declined due to law enforcement crackdowns and the rise of rival gangs, leading to Sabini's fall into obscurity. Despite this, his legacy as a feared gang leader endures, particularly in popular culture depictions like the television series Peaky Blinders. Number 5. Peaky Blinders. The Peaky Blinders was a notorious gang based in Birmingham, England, active from the late 19th century into the early 20th century. The gang got its name from the distinctive flat caps its members wore, which were said to have razor blades sewn into the peaks, turning their hats into potential weapons. The Peaky Blinders were involved in a variety of criminal activities, including robbery, smuggling, illegal betting, and violent assault. They were known for their sharp style of dress, often wearing tailored suits, overcoats, and silk scarves, which contrasted with their brutal behavior. The gang's influence grew as they controlled various neighborhoods, using violence and intimidation to maintain their power. Over time, they became one of the most feared and dominant criminal organizations in Birmingham. The Peaky Blinders' reign eventually waned as law enforcement cracked down on gang activity, and as rival gangs, like the Birmingham Boys, rose to power. Despite their decline, the legacy of the Peaky Blinders lives on, particularly through the popular television series Peaky Blinders, which dramatizes their exploits and has made them iconic figures in British cultural history. The show, while fictionalized, is rooted in the real history of the gang, capturing the dangerous and turbulent world they inhabited.